we have been talking about this for some time. I think first when in the Western Governors meeting we had a chance to talk about it, but our respective officials have been talking about a joint project for some time. So this memorandum of understanding really was the next step, formalize that discussion that's happened. There is a lot of work to do, as the Governor has mentioned. And the problem with setting an exact timetable with respect to sort of a go, no-go even on this thing is that we both need our respective federal governments on board. I won't speak, I'll let the Governor speak for the Obama stimulus package, but our federal government, to its credit, has a green infrastructure fund that's available. They have some money for carbon capture and sequestration. We've already received the benefit of $250 million for the Estevan project. So we're very grateful for the federal government on that count. We need $100 million, though, for this one, we think. We're prepared to make an investment from our own innovation fund as a province because we want to lead in this area of sustainable energy. And, but before we can set those go, no-go dates, I think we're going to need to hear from the federal government. We are contemplating, we haven't made a decision yet about the Governor and myself going on a tour, a two-city tour, Ottawa and then Washington together, and maybe seeing to see if we can get the job done. I don't know if we'll get T-shirts made or what, Governor. But, anyway.
I thought the tour was Las Vegas and Mexico City. Wait a minute here.
Did you have any comments on the timetable?
Well, look, there's some firsts, and the first is actually getting the bolt-on technology to capture 20-30% of the CO2 from a smokestack. Now, we think at the University of Regina, working with SAS Power and others, that that technology is ready for commercialization. On the Montana side, we have something called the Big Sky Sequestration Project that's funded at Montana State University by the Department of Energy, and we have identified the geologic structures all over Montana where we can store this CO2, including some portions in extreme northeast Montana, just across the border. We have opportunities for enhanced oil recovery, but we think that there's going to be great opportunities in enhanced oil recovery. We've got to prove to the world that we can store this CO2 geologically and it will be there for a millennium and beyond. And so we want to move to actually carbon sequestration, geologic sequestration, because there will always be naysayers. They say, well, enhanced oil recovery, that's not geologic sequestration. So on our side, we want to demonstrate first and foremost that we can do this. And then scientists from all over the world will come to study what we're doing, and they can compare notes with what they might be able to do in their own geologic structure. We're talking about 1,000 tons of CO2 per day. Now, I got to tell you, Brad, the best barometer that I have about how Montanans are getting things by what they read in the newspaper, because, you know, you can't really believe what's in the newspaper. Is my mom. She's 80 years old, and she knows I get up early. I get up about 4:30, and she'll call at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, just got the newspaper, and I read everything online, but she still gets that newspaper out, you know, the ones that are still buying the newspaper and paying. And she has a cup of coffee, and she reads it, and so she'll read the political news of that day. I bet you that happens to you once in a while. And so when this notion came up in some of the first stories about Montana working with Saskatchewan on a carbon sequestration project where you would capture the CO2 and we would pump it down and pump it into the earth on the Montana side of the border, she called and she said, what the hell's the matter with you? Why would you bring a bunch of poison from Saskatchewan and pump it into Montana? They can take care of their own poison. Well, Mom, it's not exactly. But you see what that was? That was a great barometer because she's pretty clever. She's about like a lot of Montanans. And so I knew, okay, we get wrapped around this stuff, and so we think everybody knows what carbon sequestration is, and they know what CO2 is. And, you know, I had a legislator during this last session that had proposed a CO2 bill, and it was a terrible bill for carbon sequestration, and he was yammering on about it. The press came to me, and I said, that guy doesn't know carbon dioxide from Coca-Cola. And he didn't. But my mom was right. I needed to explain it better. So I've been explaining to people, what is CO2? Well, CO2. Take a deep breath. You took in some nitrogen, you took in some oxygen, you took in some CO2. Breathe it out, you breathe out some CO2. And so this is a naturally occurring substance. It's not arsenic, it's not mercury, it's not going to kill you. In fact, that smokestack just across the border from Montana that's putting CO2 into the atmosphere, we're already getting that CO2. We're getting it all over the world. We're getting CO2 from China and we're getting CO2 from Atlanta. And so by pumping it back under the earth on the Montana side is not going to destroy the geologic structures, and we have to explain to them that God stored CO2 there for 60 million years. We ought to be able to do the same thing. I think there's more explaining that we need to do, and that's why we do need to take it on the road. Because I don't know how it is in Ottawa, but in Washington, D.C., they're not smarter than the average bear. They just got elected. And so we got to go explain it. We got to tell them what we plan to do.